So the lessons that we're learning today is 2-4. It is combining like terms. When you have a term that is like 2x, for example, what I like to do is I like to teach this lesson a little bit differently and explain it a little bit differently than some teachers do. If you had the term 2x, what I like to think about is I like to think about first and last names. Every single person has a first name and a last name. I like to think of the 2, the number that's in front of the letter, as the first name. And I like to think of the letter as the last name. You're going to hear me say many, many, many times, you can only add together things that have the same last name. So you can only add together X's with X's. You can only add together Y's with Y's. You can only add together M's with M's, for example. Now, the tricky part about that is you have to look at the sign that's in front of it. If there is a negative sign or a minus sign, yesterday we talked about how a negative sign and a minus sign look the same. They are the same thing. The same thing with a positive sign and a plus sign. So when you go to combine your like terms, combine means to add, just like you're making cookies or making a cake, you combine all the ingredients into a bowl. So you're adding them all together. So when we're combining our like terms, we're always adding things together. So you're going to add together your X's with your X's. You're going to add together your Y's with your Y's. And you have to look at the sign that's in front of the number. A minus sign and a negative sign are the same thing. If they look the same, they are the same. So we can add together X's with X's. We can add together Y's with Y's. The tricky part is when you have a number all by itself. If we had the number 7, all right, the way that I explain this with first and last names, 7 would be the first name. So some famous people that only go by one name, all right, some famous people that only go by one name. For example, if you think musical artists, all right, if you think about Rihanna, Rihanna only goes by one name, all right? Beyonce only goes by Beyonce. Cher or Eminem or Prince or Shakira, those Adele, Pink, Usher, Pharrell, all right? They really only go by one name. If you think of toys, you might think of like Barbie. Barbie only goes by one name, all right? Well, you can only add together first names with just first names, all right? So if they don't have a last name, what we are going to call them is something a little bit weird when it just has a first name. I like to call them Madonnas, all right? Madonna only goes by one name, Madonna. So you're going to hear me say many, many times, you can only add together X's with X's, Y's with Y's, Madonnas with Madonnas. So you have to look at the last names. You can only add together things that have the same last name. Madonnas with Madonnas would be like adding together, it would be like adding together a 7 and a 2. We can add together a 7 and a 2, all right? That's a Madonna and a Madonna. But you can't add together like a 7 and a 2X. They don't have the same last name, all right? We can't add together 7 and 2X to be 9X. It doesn't work that way. You can only add together things that have the same last name. For example, if we had a 2X and a 3X, we could add those together. That would be 5X. We could add together a negative 4Y and a 6Y. Those have the same last name. All right, that would be 2Y. But you can't add together these because they don't have the same last name. Now, if it didn't have the X and it was just 7 and 2, we can add those together. All right, so they have to have the same last name in order to add them together. So taking a look at these ones, and I'm going to go up to the board. Taking a look at these ones, these are all examples of combining like terms. We can add together the 2X and the 7X because they have the same last name. What I like to do is I like to circle it And when you circle it, make sure that you circle the symbol that's in front of it. So that's why I circled that plus sign, because that's really a positive 7. 2x plus 7x gives you 9x. If I look at the next one, I have a 3m and a negative 5m. Yes, that says minus 5m, but when you go to add together your like terms, you are counting that as a negative sign. So 3m plus negative 5m is negative 2m. If we have a negative 2w and an 8w, negative 2w plus 8w, they have the same last name, so we can add them together. That would be 6w. Sometimes you're going to be tricked like this. We can add together the 5t and the negative 8t because they have the same last name, but then we have a Madonna at the end. This doesn't have a last name, so we can't add it together with the t's because you can only add together things that have the same last name. 5t plus negative 8t is negative 3t. Well, what do we do with that plus 10? All that we do with that plus 10 is just bring it down, all right? Just bring down the plus 10. We cannot add together the negative 3t and the 10 because they don't have the same last name. This has the last name of T, and this is a Madonna. Sometimes they're going to try and trick you. The letters that have the same last name might not always be right next to each other, all right? This time we have a Madonna in the middle, so we're just going to ignore that. We're going to add together the 2x and the 9x together to be 11x, and then just bring down our minus 9. Make sure you bring down the right sign with that 9. We cannot add together the x and the Madonna, all right? They have to have the same last name. In some problems, you might have to do two things. Here we have a 5y and a negative 9y. Well, we can add together the 5y and the negative 9y to be a negative 4y. But then we also have an 8 and a negative 6. We can add together the Madonna and Madonna. So these only have a first name. We can add those together. 8 plus negative 6 is positive 2. When we write it, since it was positive 2, we're going to write plus 2. So again, you can only add together things that have the same last name. So when we go to start solving questions, all right, we have the equation 3x plus 7x equals 20. We can add things together that are on the same side of the equal sign. So we can add together our 3x and our 7x. 3x plus 7x is 10x. Bring down your equal sign, bring down your 20. Now it's just a one-step equation. This says 10 times x. The opposite of times is divide. So divide by 10, whatever you do to one side of the equal sign, you have to do to the other. Those 10s cancel out. Bring down your x, bring down your equal sign. 20 divided by 10 is 2. X equals 2 is our answer. Again, we could do a check if we wanted to by taking our answer and subbing it in. If we take this 2 and we sub it in here for x and here for x, what would happen is we would have 3 times 2. 3 times 2 is 6. Then you have your plus sign in the middle. We have 7 times 2 instead of 7 times x. That is 14. Well, what is 6 plus 14? 6 plus 14 is 20. Those matched, so you know that you did it correctly. Remember, if they don't match, then your answer would be wrong. If we take a look at this first one here, we have 4k plus 7 plus 8k equals 31. We have letters on the same side of the equal sign, so we can add together our like terms. We can add together a 4k and an 8k. 4k plus 8k is 12k. We don't have anything else that is on the same side of the equal sign that we can add together, so we're going to bring down our plus 7. We're going to bring down our equal sign. We're going to bring down our 31. Now, don't get confused. Some people might try to do this. Don't do this. You can't do this. You can't do this because they are on different sides of the equal sign. You cannot add together things that are on the same side or on different sides of the equal sign. They have to be on the same side, like this 4K and this 8K are. So now what you have here is a two-step equation. To solve this two-step equation, I'm going to do -7 and -7 to get the 12K all by itself. So we have 12K equals 24 when I subtract. This is 12 times K. The opposite of times is divide. So divide by 12, divide by 12. Always do top divided by bottom. You get K equals 2. One of the ways that they're going to try and trick you is in this next problem, you have an M that is all by itself. Anytime that you have a letter that is all by itself, there's really a 1 in front of it. So this is really a 1M and a 2M. We can add those together because they're on the same side of the equal sign. 1M plus 2M gives us 3M. Bring everything else down. So bring down your -4, bring down your equal sign, bring down your 14. Now we just have a two-step equation. Always get rid of your plus whatever or minus whatever first. So +4 + 4, 18, 14 plus 4 is 18. Divide by 3, divide by 3 to get the M all by itself. Top divided by bottom, you get M equals 6. So again, you can only add together things that are on the same side of the equal sign, all right? And they have to have the same last name. Sometimes you're going to have negative numbers. This says 7 minus y plus 5y equals 9. Again, anytime that you have a letter all by itself, there's really a 1 in front of it. So we have letters that are on the same side of the equal sign. We have a -1y and a 5y. -1y plus 5y is 4y. Bring down your equal sign, bring down your 9. Now, what to do with that 7? All I'm going to do is bring that 7 down. Now, think about it. What symbol is going to go in between the 7 and the 4? Well, when we added these together, it was a +4. Since it's a +4, I'm going to write +4. If when we added it together, it was a -4, this would be a minus sign there. So now that is the equation that we need to solve. It's just written backwards. We want to try and get the 4y all by itself. So -7 minus 7. 9 minus 7 is 2. Divide by 4, divide by 4. Be very, very careful. Remember, you always have to do top divided by bottom. So we're doing 2 divided by 4. 2 divided by 4, you will get some decimals. It is 0.5. Sometimes, again, you're going to have multiple things that you have to add together. On the same side of the equal sign in this problem, we have R's and R's. We can add together the 5R and the -6R. 5R plus -6R is -1R. But we can also add together our Madonnas and our Madonnas. 10 and 8. 10 plus 8 is 18. Now, I could have put that on that side of the -1R, or I could have gone like this, and it was a 10 plus 8 is +18, so I could write +18 there. It doesn't matter which side is on, as long as the sign that's in front of it is correct, like a plus sign or a minus sign. Bring down our equals 42. There's your two-step equation now. So -18 to get the -1R all by itself. 42 minus 18 is 24. Divide by -1, divide by -1, R equals -24. Sometimes you're going to have to add 3 things together, all right? You have a -1x, a -2x, and a -3x all on the same side of the equal sign. They all have the same last name, so we could add all 3 of those together. -1x plus -2x plus -3x is -6x. Bring down our +10, bring down our equal sign, bring down our -20. There's our two-step equation. So minus 10 minus 10. So we have negative 6x equals negative 30. Divide by negative 6, divide by negative 6. X equals, be careful, a negative divided by a negative is a positive. Sometimes you're not going to add together letters and letters, things that have the same last name. Sometimes, like in this one, you're only going to add together a Madonna and a Madonna. We have a plain number here and a plain number here that doesn't have the same last name. So 75 plus 75 is 150. It's a positive 150. So I could bring down my 3p and put it here in front of the 150. Or I have my choice. I could bring it down behind it, bringing the plus sign with it, and have it look like that. So it doesn't matter which side you put it on, as long as the symbol in front of it is correct. To solve the rest of it, you do minus 150 and minus 150. So we have 3p equals 345. Divide by 3, divide by 3. P equals 115. And that is our last one. Does anyone have any questions?